We've got some new faces at the table, so why don't we just go around the room quickly and everybody just kind of introduce themselves before we get started. I'll start. Jackie Rector, SIS member.
Mary Kiernan Ty, SIS member.
Larry Jones, longtime resident of Flagler County, retired law enforcement officer.
Diane Klein, new SIS member.
Myra Middleton Valentine, SIS member.
Rick Jones, otherwise known as Mr. Pearl.
We're so glad you both are here.
Yeah.
Ed Sharkovich with the Flagler County Historical Society.
I'm Pearl Jones with SIS.
Cynthia Dodzik with SIS.
Deb Giordano with SIS.
Everybody.
In both sides of the bridges.
You got your own theme music, right?
Yeah.
And so I have to add, so Diane is our newest member.
Okay.
Diane.
This is Diane
Welcome
Klein.
aboard, Diane.
And our hero of the week.
And Diane is my neighbor and a friend. And I won't tell you how we're connected, but it's a small world. And so
She's a Chiefs fan.
I don't know if you're a Chiefs fan. Are you going to be a Chiefs fan? You hang with me though.
Okay.
I love Chiefs. Diane and I live a stone's throw from each other, and I have to share this. I'm gonna share it now.
Go ahead.
So I was talking to Diane about SIS, and we kind of really connected at Flagler Beach Democratic meeting. And then we went to I invited her and the Dems to the Flagler Beach Black History Month proclamation. And she learned a little bit more about SIS and both sides of the bridge. And just has taken on, even before she joined SIS, because, I probably should let you tell you about yourself, but Diane has been in Flagler Beach a long time.
Oh, yeah?
How long? Since
Late 70s.
late 70s.
So you know about that sign that was in there?
Yes.
Across the waterway.
Yes. So Diane
Rick
she
doesn't
says,
know
Jackie,
about
she
the
calls me
sign.
and she says, you know what? I think I know people that know people that know people. And so she just took it upon herself to just start researching, and so as a result of that, are you gonna talk about that? Am I still in your thunder?
About what, the sign?
Photos?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so she says, I bet there's a photographer. His name is
Theo Hine.
You want to tell your
I
own
know it.
story? You
I
want to
know
tell your own
Theo.
story?
Yeah,
Want me
you
to-
keep going.
Okay. Theo Hine, and she says, Theo Hine, you see there?
He was a school teacher.
He always
Yes,
teaches.
yes, he was.
Okay. Okay.
She gave us a little story
Okay.
out there.
Okay.
A little bit.
Okay. And so Theo Hine was the the local photographer. He, whatever was happening, he would take a photo of it. And so Diane says, I bet you Theo Hine but he's passed. And so
Right.
she just did her research and found Theo Hine's daughter, Thea, and has been coming here working with Ed, kind of looking through stuff, and they connected. And anyway, so as a result of her being, a private detective and stupid, blah, 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 she was able to connect with Thea, and there were like 40 boxes of photos. You guys already know this. 40
Look,
boxes.
they're up.
Okay, all right. But I guess I'm sharing this because she just took this on, without even, and you've just been such an asset. And she even dropped stuff off at my house.
Oh, wow.
Yep, 2015 Flagler Beach 90th birthday limited edition, A New Beginning, with all these. And so I have to read this. Jackie, I asked the question of where could I find the photo of the sign on the old Flagler Beach Facebook page, and it generated a lot of comments.
168.
He doesn't know
Rick
about
doesn't
the
know
sign.
that.
He
Hey,
just knows
Larry,
the sign.
would you
The sign.
mind giving a little brief summary about the sign?
Yes, the sign. It was in the intercoastal waterway going east on 100 to Flagler Beach. It was on a 4x4 sign on a piece of plywood, white with black letters saying, "No in after dark."
Well, I've seen those before.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I was in the service, I was stationed in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And driving down the highway, the interstate going into Fayetteville, there's a huge billboard.
Bill.
And it had a picture of a Klansman sitting on a rearing white charger that says, "Welcome to Klan Country."
Oh, gosh.
Okay, then you know about the sign.
And that Fayetteville was also a sundown town at one time. But when the military
Were
moved
there
Fort
two
Bragg,
signs? One next to the bridge and one on A1A?
I don't know about the one on A1A. I just know
Okay.
about the one in the Coastal
Okay.
You
Waterway.
couldn't get on that side to see the
I
bridge.
thought I
I couldn't
saw.
go over there to get see that sign.
That was in case somebody came down the road. No, I thought I
That
saw
sign.
a picture of the sign that was
I
on the
don't know any
bridge.
place they
And
had a
that's where
sign
I
that said
initially
No
was trying to figure out
N-word
where in the
at the
heck
bottom. You know, they
I would
say
have seen
no
it.
color.
I still
no
haven't
blacks,
figured that out.
No.
That police robbery
This
in
is
the
the only
Coastal
place I've
Waterway.
ever
Right.
heard of. that had
Rick
that.
was just finishing those. What were we going to say about the military or something?
I was just saying that it was Fayetteville was a sundown town also until Fort Bragg became a significant part of the community. And they told them to take the signs down.
They took them down.
The
And
military did?
all the signs about the sundown
Yeah.
came down, but the Klansman billboard stayed up because it was a private property.
Wow. Where's James Fisk today?
I believe he might be working.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
He
Ja-
works over at the Flagler Beach
Yeah.
Museum.
He works at the Flagler Beach Museum.
Right.
And James had written a letter to the Flagler Beach City Commissioners identifying 13 towns around Florida that were sundowner towns, that are documented sundowner towns, and Flagler Beach was one of them. And two of those, Ocoee,
McCoy.
Ocoee.
Ocoee.
and another
Byron
one other
Landon.
one had written city proclamations condemning the past of the city as a sundowner town, and
Oh, wow.
we're working forward, la 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 la. So James had asked the city commissioners would they consider to do something like-minded, and didn't get a response. So Jackie reached out to the mayor, Patty King, to see if that might be a consideration, especially this is their centennial celebration. It would be a good time. Nothing?
I heard from her last Friday. I sent her part of the email that was important, but I didn't send her the whole thing. So she's been in Tallahassee.
All right, this is a bad week, isn't it?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
she was
legislative
just catching up on
sessions.
emails, but she asked me to connect with her. So at least she did respond, and so I'm hopeful. I think she'll be on board, but you know, it's a work in progress.
Do you want to finish with
So I had spoken to a family that's been in Flagler Beach since early 1960s, and they actually had in their mother's collection of estate items a photo of the sign, but the sign was a billboard. He said this thing was a billboard that was on A1A, and they had actually brought that and donated it to the Flagler Beach Museum, and maybe 10 years ago or so, and had given it to an older woman that was at the front desk. And when they gave it to her, they said the entire look on her face changed, and she said, "Well, isn't that special?" or something to effect of that. And they said when they walked out of there, they said that's probably the last time we're ever going to see that photo. So so I can tell you that I've asked James Fisk to look through the entirety of that museum after hearing that the photo of that sign, not the bridge sign, but there was a A1A sign, had in fact been donated to that museum, and he said that there's absolutely nothing that he can find there. This morning I went to my regular little cafe for coffee, Zia Maria's, which is across from Wendy's, and it was coffee with a cop morning. First time ever, Bunnell Police Department, all sitting there with the Chief Brandon, and all that. There were probably 7 or 8 other officers. So I was the first person to come in, and I was like pegged for their first coffee with a cop person. So I sat there, told him who I was, and Historical Society, and this is what we're doing, this is what we're working on, Bunnell History Day, and then the collaboration with SIS. And as I started going into the both sides of the bridge project and the signs, and then also what I learned from Cynthia White, who's a multi-generational Dozier family member, who told me that it wasn't just Flagler Beach. We had a Flagler Beach by by sundown, but you had to be south of the ditch that was next to the Coquina City Hall by sundown also. You couldn't be north of, basically, of City Hall. One of the police officers who grew up in Volusia County, but not too far south of Flagler, who had family up here, said that he remembered both signs. He remembered seeing both signs. And he was an older guy, maybe late 50s, early 60s, somewhere in that neighborhood. So his recollection was that there were two signs. One on the bridge and one on A1A.
Well, I didn't
So
get A1A, so I don't
Yeah,
know
you don't know.
about
All right.
Yeah. Good point.
You
Good
didn't
point.
pass the first sign.
That's a great point. Okay.
I can tell you. Yeah.
but I'd like to give a tremendous gratitude to you because having that collection of photos and negatives, just what I've seen in just one that small box that's right over there to the left is a gold mine in itself, just for Flagler County history. But it's not just white Flagler County history. I mean, there's photos and negatives in there of African American weddings and the 1967 Carver High School reunion. There's photos in that tiny little box, and just that small box is already a gold mine. And I can only imagine, what else is going to be in the entirety of what you saw in that other room. So we went and we drove down and got the rest of the boxes before the meeting here at 2:00. She and I went down and got the remaining photos, so everything is out. Thea, who was Theo's daughter, Thea was a longtime member of the Flagler Beach Photography Club, which I founded 10 years ago and had turned over to somebody else, so I know her well from that. When I came on here as president and on the board, she was a board member and had been a board member here for quite a long time. So not only the historical content of what's undiscovered in those boxes, but also I'd really at some point like to pay tribute to her dad's work. In what's in there, all the cameras that he shot all the pictures with are in those boxes. There's photos of him holding those cameras on site. That's just as important as coming across something else that we've been pursuing, which is a storage unit full of surveys of Flagler County going back to the very early 1900s that we're working on getting access to, because with that we can look at where I'm hoping where the lost African American cemeteries were, because the surveyors would have recorded it, where it may not be anywhere else in existence right now, and then other features. So it's a tremendous record that we're so grateful that you went ahead and secured for us.
So part of looking for the picture, I had reached out to Carl Laundrie, and that was why I came here that day, because he had written an article about, he worked for the Tribune, I guess it was, I forgot what year it was or when it was, but he had written about a black cemetery that's just north of Bunnell. And he had in the paper, there's the picture of the headstone that's there in the woods. And I don't know if they had the perimeter of the cemetery, but that's story you have here. I tried to look it up in the archive stuff and I couldn't do it. Anyway, so you have that.
It might be on the website. I'll have to look. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was an article by Carl Laundrie.
Okay.
So that's
All
one.
right. Next.
So we're going to do we're going to go through the questions. What's our game plan?
What I thought we could do, because again, Gary had to cancel because of health reasons, that we still could have a conversation and review about interviewing and the process and the do's and the don'ts type of thing, very informally. And I just, is that okay with everyone that we proceed with doing that? And I just want to acknowledge that there's so much expertise here. So I'm just like chairing the meeting, so to speak, because I know people have been trained in interviewing, and we have a journalist here, and we have a doctor here that did community research and interviewing, and just to acknowledge, all the wisdom in here too, and people that have been more educators in here that have done interviewing too, because I mean, would everyone say that they have interviewed someone in their lives? Whether you're a sheriff,
yeah.
You're interviewing people, I'm sure. Were you aware of how fast you were driving, or so, or where were you?
Let's call them interrogation.
That's what I was thinking.
I think Larry would have done it like a very friendly interview. You know what I mean? Just talking. So, so is that an assumption I can make? Has anyone never interviewed someone? Because historians interview people, you've already done it, Ed, and, and searching things. And I just want to mention a little bit about myself, very little. I'm a social worker of 40 plus years, and I have interviewed, so to speak, not in the technical sense, but doing assessments and all kinds of stuff with people and working with people on individual and group basis. So, and I think the common denominator, I'm going to make another assumption, is that we all are interested in people's stories. Is that true? So that there's a keen interest in people's stories, even how we were all looking at the pictures before. Because I was saying, like, a success even happened in Bunnell the other day when Ed brought in these pictures. It was like people were so excited to see these pictures. And they started identifying people, and it was just such a, like a family gathering. Wow. So the circle within the circle, when people are talking amongst themselves and giving us history, and then it was another warm-up, because the other day, some of us have met with the Bunnell ladies several times, but 12 people, not 12, there were about 12 or 15 people there, but 7 people did sign up to be interviewed. So, and I think the pictures helped to assist us with that. So what I'd like to review, again, briefly, we're not going to take a long time on this, is what's like a successful interview, what's an unsuccessful one, and also I think it's important just to mention, not that we'll go so in depth, or maybe we will, about, I've gathered from what I've been listening to and hearing, is that people themselves, we can be triggered during an interview too, right? So I can be triggered, and also someone I'm interviewing can be triggered. So it's just some awarenesses about that. And a little bit just about trauma informed, like, and maybe just an overview, because it's not, I can't call this a training, so to speak, but it's an overview, just what we can look for. And then also over time, we're going to be, I believe we're going to be learning as we go, and we're going to have some glitches and some mistakes. I mean, right, we all know that. So just to state that. So I just want to say that this is a big brain. All of us together, we all have them, and we're fusing together, and that I see this as a think tank. And so I've already mentioned about job interviews or medical assessments, educational assessments, business owners that, interviewing people, and actually probably even interviewing dogs, right? You know what I mean? So you're seeing, is this dog a good fit for this dog? You know what I mean? So there's so many skills on various levels. So let's just review. Let's just start even with basic logistics. What do you think makes a successful logistics to help set the tone for an interview?
Comfort.
Comfort. What the room temperature is. You know what I mean? Is there light blinding people as they're speaking? Is the chair comfortable? And also, do people feel safe where they're being interviewed? Because that's why I'm interested and curious with people. I'm not going to make assumptions, but last week when we saw Bonita, she did say we could use a Bunnell office to interview people. I saw this space. We've been in the space before, Jackie and I, and it's very comfortable there and quiet, and it's also, as Larry, we had a conversation that it's a safe place for people. I went in once with one of the Bunnell ladies, and a few months ago, whatever that was, but she was showing me all the pictures in the gym. I mean, so proud. This is her niece. This is her older sister. Right there, history right in the Carver Center. So the logistics about that. And we've also, Larry has said that possibly we could also use your church for the interview.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because a church space where people again have history right in the building. So some people may even prefer homes. Their own homes might be the best comfort level. But that sometimes raises a whole thing about logistics and sounds and stuff like that. So another thing, and I brought in the questions that Jackie found on the interview for everybody, but what makes us, moving on, a successful interview is write good questions, right? Because have you ever listened to an interview, like we all have our favorite interviewers, right? Either on TV or like mine is Jen White on a podcast I listen to. I love her questions. she's compassionate, you can hear it in her voice, and she has the best tone. I really feel, because sometimes she's talking to people that I necessarily don't agree with, and I'm assuming she doesn't either, but so even keel, because this is why I'm not a journalist, because I'd be like, not cool and collective, you know, so, but, you know, because has anyone ever, like, who are some of your favorite interviewers? Anybody? No one ever listens to
Well,
voices?
most recently, my favorite person, it's a show. It's Stephen Colbert.
Okay,
I love him.
Yeah.
He's
and what do you like about it?
not at all biased, no, but no, but he identifies with whoever he's talking to,
Yeah,
and he lets them know what he's trying to get, the point he's trying to get to. That's another thing. The purpose of the interview needs to be made clear.
yes,
What are you trying to do? What do you want from me?
right, right.
Sort of thing.
Yeah. So, and asking the good questions, he does ask really good questions of people. You know, so it's watching out for, like, and that's what we're going to do with review the questions. Because again, we don't want to ask, it's impossible to ask like 30 questions. And we'll probably have conversations around how many questions should we ask. But we want to make them the best questions that we think for people. And so what are other ideas about what makes a good interview? Like, what do you think someone needs in order to interview somebody else, especially for our project?
Trust.
Trust,
Good listening skills.
good listening skills,
Compassion.
compassion.
Be careful of your body language. But
Oh, that's a good point. That's a very good
body
point.
language is
Yeah.
can be good.
Yeah.
It can be not so good.
Right, because,
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so we can, because that says 1,000 words too, and it's also, I believe, eye contact. And one thing that, I mean, I find so much in SIS, and in this room too, that the depth of respect, that I think that a tone can be sent, you know, and even, you know, last week watching Deb and Larry, the respect that we saw there too, amongst other things, but this respect and asking thoughtful questions. And then, because all of the things can send messages of, I am interested, like if you're leaning in, or I'm not interested. You know, and because even I was thinking today, has anyone ever been on a bad interview when, you know, the person's not interested in you? Yeah, what was that like?
You can tell that they're already thinking of the next question instead of paying attention to what you're actually saying.
Right, right, they might be moving their leg, or, yeah,
Looking away.
Yeah.
Or expressions.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
watch.
I was on an interview in a prison once by the warden. I made the first interview, then I made the second interview. And then everyone asking me interesting questions, and the warden says to me, he says, I just want you to know something. I'm like, yes. You know, I was respectful and everything. And I knew I was the only Yankee in the room. But he said, if there's a hostage situation, we don't negotiate. You know, at that moment I knew his shop wasn't for me, and I think I wasn't for them. You know what I mean? Because he just decided to pop out that. So you know when an interview's over too.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's just the different things when you know people are interested. So and also patience, right? Because sometimes, and I'm forgetting now who sent Cynthia or Deb sent out that interview with the older woman, and I forget whether it was a Princess Place or her home somewhere.
That was her home.
Yeah, but and the
Kathleen,
person,
Williams.
yeah, and it was like she didn't have, her memory wasn't that great, but they were waiting, you know, in a respectful time, I felt. And then sometimes you do have to fill in the blank, but I think when we're interviewing people, to really give people a minute to collect their thoughts sometimes, or if they get distracted. And then there's a kind way, right, to circle them back, or would you like me to repeat the question, or is there, you know,
That's a
whatever.
really great point.
Yeah.
Yes, because we're going to get a lot of that.
Yes.
We're going to get, that's going to be one of the things.
Yep.
You know, repeating the question.
Yes.
You know, do you want me to repeat the question?
Mhm.
Do you understand the question?
Right.
And then giving them, we'll be watching them to see if maybe they're finished, or maybe you need a little help, or
Right.
do you need a little bit more time?
Yes.
So
Yes.
we're gonna have, even though we have a goal, we're trying to get, we have to also,
Pacing.
we have to really
Yes.
pace ourselves
Yes.
and give that person time to collect their thoughts.
Yes, give
and,
people a minute.
and be aware of their body, you know, we're going to have to look at them to
Yes.
see are they struggling? Is there anything here maybe making them uncomfortable? And I think it's okay to say, are you okay?
Yes.
Are you comfortable? So this is really delicate. This is delicate work. This is delicate that we're
Yes.
dealing with, and
Yes.
so that was a really great point.
Yeah.
Also, age plays a big factor in it too.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and I also think accents too, because I know I have an accent, and in case anyone else didn't notice, but and sometimes, especially when I lived in Texas, it took me a minute to get to. Pearl, did you have that experience too? Because I know you lived in Texas. It was just like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it was difficult to understand sometimes for me. And I know
Indeed.
when I came back from New York, people would say, you need 3 weeks before we can understand you again, because you can talk fast. And it's also,
I just want to add, when
Please.
we're formulating our questions, we really need to make sure we cover the 5 W's, the who, what, when, where, why.
yeah,
That's really key
Yes.
when you're making your questions.
yes.
Good point.
And it's also the open-ended questions too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so,
Definitely.
Just
open-ended
one other
questions.
thing you need to make sure you are, as you're receiving your answers, don't judge.
absolutely.
Oh, that's
Right.
so critical.
Right. Because when do you think that's going to come up?
Well, the
Right.
nature of your organization is going to automatically put some people on notice or on
Say that
edge.
again. I'm sorry. Repeat that. What did you
Speak
say?
up.
So the nature of your organization, SIS,
Yes.
which is interested in race relations. Little background from me. When I was in the service, I attended and completed a course of instruction at the Defense Race Relations Institute down at Patrick Air Force Base. And my job after that was to conduct seminars and try and improve race relations within the military.
Wow,
That's awesome.
And my charter, if you will, my charter was to tell everybody that they can be just as comfortable as they want with their opinions and their beliefs. The only thing I'm concerned with is their behavior.
Yes.
Okay, and that's a tough road to. And you can believe anything you want, but just watch what you say, watch what you do. And trying to get that point across is without being judgmental, if you will. It's tough. So.
Yes, it is. Yeah, because I thought for myself, as someone starts interviewing, for me, white people, and they start saying racist things, and they may or may not, I don't know, or tell a story that back in the day story, it just, and again, staying calm and non-judgmental, because I've heard it before from people, so it's not going to be my first rodeo with that, but it is a difficult thing. I've had that where clients were racist and saying things, so it is something, that could trigger ourselves as well, so, and not coming across as, judgmental, because we're here to interview people and get, speak frankly, right? We want the truth. And also what Rick said too, because I think what people will be, so to speak, eliminated when they see the bridge, both sides of the bridge, what we're about. So that may kind of, people might not be interested. Like you said, they might say this is not for them.
Then we can tell them they can, free to speak whatever you want to speak. You
Yes.
know?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Because we want all of that.
right.
Yeah,
Yes,
we
yes,
do.
we want all of that.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So.
So should there be a flow diagram so that if somebody's not interested in speaking to that, but they're interested in speaking to some other version of Flagler County history, that we give them an opportunity to either talk about that then, or just stick with what the program is, which is both sides of the bridge, and then say, we'd love to set you up with whomever to talk about other aspects of Flagler County history.
That's
I'm
a
not
great,
sure.
That's a great
Yeah,
question.
that would be definitely a group thing.
That's a great question.
Because the one thing that I wouldn't want to see is if they realize, all right, well, we're going to be talking about this, I don't want to talk about that. But if they know a whole lot about the county and other aspects of
Yes.
history, we sure would love to get their story. You know, we just don't want them to shut down. You know, and then
We're going to
the,
get that too.
what's that?
We're going to get some of that.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we're gonna get a lot. I
Yes,
think we're
yes.
gonna get more of that.